Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today would have been ban list news, or actually it might have been yesterday if they actually came out with a ban list, but there's no ban list. As many of you guys have probably already seen, there's no ban list going into the first set of Zenkai series. It's a really shocking decision, to be honest, but not one that's all that bad, and a lot of you guys might think that's a pretty surprising take, maybe even coming from me, but let's just read what they have to say first here on the Facebook page, and then I have some thoughts to talk about as it relates to this lack of ban list. So, ban limited errata announcement. Greetings, Dragon Ball Super card game players. There are no plans to update the banned limited card list with the release of Zenkai Series Set 1 Dawn of the Z Legends. We'd like our players to experience the changes brought by the Zenkai series while retaining the card pool used through BT17 Ultimate Squad. An errata will be issued to correct the awaken effect of BT18 Bardock's crew as follows. Before, you may draw one card, switch one of your energy to active mode, and add cards from your hand to your life until you have 6 left. So they had that backwards, and basically now they're changing it to adding cards from your life to your hand until you have 6 life left. So they're fixing that issue. We are dedicated to developing a game that Dragon Ball Super fans and card game fans alike can enjoy. Thank you for your continued support of the Dragon Ball Super card game, Dragon Ball Super card game team. So this was super shocking to read yesterday, and if a ban list had come out yesterday, I probably would have just scrapped yesterday's video, move it to another day, and just done ban list coverage, right? But since there's no ban list, I wanted to kind of take some time to think about what this means. And again, it's not really all that bad of a thing. So there's a couple things here. One, I've been hearing a lot of people say that there are no events between now and Nationals, so why implement a ban list? That's not entirely true. I don't really know why a lot of people are saying that. Like, there are not many events between now and Nationals, don't get me wrong, but I already know that there's online regionals scheduled for September. There is a Kansas City regional in September, I believe. Maybe there are more that are or haven't been announced yet. There's some online stuff as well. There's store championships, which aren't really big events, but a lot of people are going to be trying to play for their invites in this format. So it's still important to have a good understanding of Zenkai. And besides that, I mean, we're getting a new mechanic introduced to the game, right? So even if there aren't any crazy major tournaments in Zenkai series, you're still going to want to have a good grasp of how the new mechanic works. It's going to be very important to practice this format in preparation for Nationals because, again, you want to understand how Z energy works, how the Z deck works, all the new rulings, just how the flow of the game might change thanks to this new mechanic. Oh, and I just remembered, too, that I think there's a San Diego regional the first weekend of Zenkai. So there are events for the first set of Z series. Maybe not as many as people would like, but hopefully they'll add more over time. But yeah, I don't think this is actually such a bad thing because while there are cards that I personally had on my wish list for being hit, many of you had on your wish list for being hit, and cards that I just outright thought they would hit just because, you know, a lot of people were talking about them or they have strong interactions with Zenkai stuff, the format was not really in a very imbalanced state. And to be honest, I mean, I got to give the developers and the R&D guys for this game real big props because it's been quite some time since we've been in like a super unfair format. Like, we've had a couple here and there, like going back to the early parts of the game. Of course there was Mecha Frieza, of course there was SS3 Goku, there was Super Shenron for a bit, and even as far as like Unison Warrior blocks concerned, Vegex was a problem for a decent amount of time. But for the better part of like 2 years, maybe even almost 3 years, we've had really solid formats where there were many decks you could play. Nothing felt too out of line in terms of balance. And there was some strong stuff and some weak stuff, don't get me wrong. There's always going to be like higher and lower ends of balance. But for the most part, things felt really good. And the fact that they decided not to ban anything here, I think is a pretty solid reflection of that. And to be honest, when you run a card game and you can say, we don't really need any balance updates, that's pretty impressive. And again, this not having a ban list doesn't really like send me into a rage or anything because the game is going to be fine without a ban list going into the Zenkai series, right? At least that's what I believe to be true now. Maybe something broken will come out in Zenkai, and maybe that's even their intention. Maybe the intention of the developers is, hey, we have this new crazy mechanic coming out. Let's just put it in the hands of the players and let's see what they find that's crazy OP. Now, you could make a comment saying, why haven't they tested their game, right? Like, I'm sure they have. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they haven't tested their game, but I'm saying like if their objective is to put it in the hands of us and have us test the new format, that's going to be a really good way to go about it, to be honest, because we're a much larger sample size. Like, yes, they should be testing and developing their own game, but I mean, at the end of the day, when you only have a select circle of people that are testing a game, you're only going to find out so much as compared to hundreds and thousands of people playing your game and what they could piece together, right? That's just realistic. That's just the realisticness of it. But yeah, no big updates to the ban list. There are a few cards I want to talk about specifically, so let's jump to that now. So guys, since we're already 5 minutes into the video, I guess I'll do my normal intro stuff. Subscribe if you're new, hit that bell so you never miss a video. If you want to support the channel, tons of ways down in the description to do so. I really would appreciate it. At this particular time, I'm actually publishing my own comic book, big dream of mine, talked about it a lot. If you guys want to see stuff for New Mafia, which is the name of the comic book, go check it out down in the description, and you guys can even support there if you want to. I would be forever in your debt. Maybe I'll start doing this more where I just do intros like in the middle of the video. Maybe it gets annoying at the beginning, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what you think. But anyways, let's talk about some stuff that we're really surprised about that they didn't touch going into Zenkai. That's of course starting off with the cards that interact very powerfully with Zenkai. And the biggest offender is probably Launch the Pure Hearted. This card is, in theory, going to be really crazy going into Zenkai. I think many of us are surprised that this card did not receive an errata to say something along the lines of like, when it's removed from your Z energy, remove it from the game, which is what the Drum and the new King Piccolo deck says, and maybe a few other cards say that as well. That would have been a very good clause to add to this for balancing purposes. Maybe they're finally under the impression that erratas are too messy, which, I mean, that hasn't stopped them in the past. Maybe they have a new philosophy on it, but I don't think it would have been too much of a problem. And I'll just say it again, like, I usually don't have too much of a problem with erratas because you got to go to the same place to find out about erratas as you do to find out about the ban list. So it's not like it's like a hidden thing or anything, but it can be annoying to remember how a card works when it doesn't say how the card works exactly on the card. That I understand the frustration. But yeah, this is a big surprising one. Is Launch going to be crazy OP? I don't know. It's going to be hard to tell. I mean, the new red decks in set 18 look very strong, and we still have U7 to worry about. GT, old GT might still be okay. But what I will say in Launch's favor is that it's been doing fairly well in Ultimate Squad format already, and the red Z battle cards are among some of the best seeming in the game. Those seem very strong. So the fact that Launch will have access to generic red Z battle cards, and maybe even some of the blue ones if you can charge enough blue-red energy, that could be really good, especially because it seems like Z energy is not going to be color specific. So if that's the case, Launch might have access to two really good pools of Z battle cards. Maybe it'll be a really strong deck. That'll be something they'll address going into set 19, or maybe if something gets out of hand, maybe they'll even do a mid-set ban list. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised at that, or I wouldn't be shocked because they decided to do no update for the main set. Maybe they want to wait for some time to pass and see what we figure out, right? Then Heartfelt Plea is the other one. Heartfelt Plea theoretically is going to be much stronger in Zenkai because Z Awakens are probably going to be considered regular Awakens. So Heartfelt Plea is going to be usable at any point in the game as long as you have a Z Awaken available to yourself. Now what's funny is this card just gets a complete and utter buff from that fact, right? And they decided not to hit it. Again, I think it's totally fine. I'm pretty sure in my video from the other day I said that they didn't really need to hit this card, but I wouldn't have been surprised if they did. But obviously they hit nothing, so this card gets a big buff, and it's going to be really good for red decks. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Of course, we got to talk about Swift Retaliation Cooler real quick. I really didn't want them to hit this, and I'm incredibly surprised that they did not. It's an awesome thing in my opinion, because again, there are so many floodgates in this format, and allowing yellow to be the one color that can actually answer them fairly cheaply, which like 3 energy is still a pretty decent amount, but I'm very happy about that. Of course, I love playing yellow. I know I'm biased. I mentioned that in the last video, but I do think that's yellow's kind of niche, is that it's able to answer any negate in the game, among doing other powerful things, of course. So I do like that this card is here to stay. I'm definitely very appreciative of that. And the final thing I want to talk about is Majin Buu Unison, which was the #1 thing on my chopping block for the ban list this time around, and it didn't get hit. The game is still going to be fine. I mean, blue is going to be strong. There's no kind of getting around that, but I might have not been considering some things when I talked about Buu in the last video, and I wanted to just bring those up now, because while I think this Unison is still very overtuned, we're actually getting a lot of Unison hate next set, which is kind of interesting. So the red Sin deck in and of itself is just a Unison destroyer. Like, there are so many effects in the deck that just say -20 a Unison or -15 a Unison. So once you get a Unison's power down to 0, it resets its power down or back to its original, but it loses a marker. So if you can do that enough times in a turn, you can remove markers very quickly on top of attacking. So with Buu Unison here, if you play like one copy of Dread Destroyer, that's one marker off, and then you can swing Dread Destroyer into the Buu, and they're probably -1. But at least for one card, you got 2 markers off. that's pretty solid. And plus there are also a lot of Z leaders that have base 20k and double strike, so that's also going to be really good for dealing with Buu Unison amongst other Unisons, of course. And then there's Piccolo Jr. Faded Rival. The Faded Rival combo might single-handedly revive green. Not too sure on that yet. We're going to try some green decks that just completely revolve around this combo, but this card being able to snipe markers purely based on how much Z energy you have, that's really strong as well. If there's a green deck out there that can just generate Z energy for super free, like multiple per turn, or at least one during your turn and one during your opponent's turn efficiently, this is going to be a very strong combo at killing Unisons. So while Buu is here to stick around, there is a lot of cards that can help deal with Unisons, and that's going to make Buu sticking around probably fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are going to be some decks that are not going to be able to deal with Unisons all that well, and that honestly might be the issue of older and quote-unquote outdated decks. But I mean, new sets coming out, new mechanics coming out, they want to encourage you to try the new cards, so of course they're going to make them powerful, right? Like, power creep is not this evil thing that should never exist. It's something that has to exist in card games, especially if you don't have rotation, because, you know, you got to make the new sets appealing somehow. But I really do think they do a good job in Dragon Ball Super of not pushing the power creep, at least as far as the past 2-ish years have been concerned. They're doing a great job. So I guess all in all, this is a video of me giving the creators of the game great praise, because to be honest, they deserved it. Like, I've had a great time playing Dragon Ball Super for 95% of the game's lifespan, which for any card game, I don't know how you can say that. Like Yu-Gi-Oh, I played for several years, and most of the time I was playing that game was not super enjoyable. Pokemon, Magic players, I'm sure you guys have your own gripes. Other card game players, I'm sure you have your own gripes. But Dragon Ball, I gotta say, they take the community feedback to heart, and while some of it's not always phrased in the most kind way, I think our messages do get across, and they really do care about our enjoyment factor of the game. I really do get that feeling from them. So overall, just wanted to say that stuff. I'm perfectly fine with the fact there's no ban list. I think the format is going to be fine, and even if it's not, we will be the ones to figure out what is crazy strong about Zenkai format, and then it'll get addressed either, again, like at a mid-set ban list or going into set 19 for nationals, right? So just wanted to talk about this stuff, guys. Let me in the comments below what you think about this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.